your mind is like a computer. I really like this analogy. We can take this analogy very far. Once you realize that your mind is like a computer, you can appreciate that in a computer, and we could be talking about a desktop computer or a smartphone, doesn't really matter, they're both computers. Your computer has multiple layers of software in it. At the surface layer, it just has your basic apps, Microsoft Word, or your Facebook app or something like that. Just the basic apps that you use. These are apps that your grandma can use without too much thought. Basically, the apps on your iPhone are designed for the dumbest people on the planet, so they could still click with their fat fingers and still get something accomplished and buy something. That's how these apps are designed. And I mean, that's fine. That's good. We want the apps to be simple, but also, I mean, this is the level of interaction at which most people are living their life, is at the level of using apps. The apps that, and then for most people, it's even worse than that. It's like they use the apps. Imagine if you got a phone pre-installed with all the apps. You're so irresponsible with your use of this phone that you don't even know how to install an app. Maybe your grandma is like this, right? She doesn't know how to, and you got to do it for her. But once you do install a few apps for her, and she learns, through some difficulty, she learns how to use a couple of her favorite apps. Okay, she gets that down, and then she can use that, and she can manage. But then, when you need to install a new app, she doesn't know how to do that. Or when something goes wrong with the old app, it needs to be updated, she doesn't know how to do that. And she clings to the old app, even though there's newer ones that came out that might be better, because she doesn't want to learn how to use the better ones. So this is exactly what's happening with most people around you, is that, their mind has come pre-installed with apps as they were in the first 20 years of their development. All that stuff you learned in school, through your family, through your church, all the moral systems you learned, the worldview you learned, all the basic science you did in history, all of that created a core foundation, and then programmed you with a bunch of these preset default settings. And really, the problem is much worse than just not being able to change an app on your phone. The problem is much deeper, because you have your app layer. Below that, you have the operating system layer. And then below that, you have something even more fundamental, which is like the BIOS, the kernel of the operating system itself, the assembly language in which the operating system is written, like the very lowest level of hardware-software interaction. And so, of course, most people have no idea how to code a new app. They couldn't design their own app if their life depended upon it, let alone how to change the operating system, recode the operating system, let alone how to actually get into the binary code of the BIOS and start to tinker around with that assembly language type of low-level code. And so because of this, most people are going through life simply using the stuff that their mind was programmed with, not consciously programming their mind with new software, and then going even deeper than that, but questioning the very foundation of their whole worldview, which would be like questioning the operating system, rewriting the operating system. Because you see, your operating system was not something that you consciously designed for the first 20 years of your life. Your operating system was just what you were born with, the instincts that you were born with as an animal, basically, as a Homo sapien. And then 20 years of schooling and various kinds of education and programming, that resulted in some kind of operating system for you, whatever that is. If you were in a Christian environment, you have a Christian operating system. If you were a Muslim, you have a Muslim operating system. If you were an atheist, you have an atheist operating system. If you were raised a scientist in a sort of a scientific household where your parents were teachers or professors, and they were very secular, then you have a secular operating system. But all of these are still operating systems. They're not all the same. Some of them are worse than others. They have different pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages. Some of them are more conscious than other ones. Some of them will limit you a lot more than other ones. But still, basically all of them limit you severely. Even if you were raised in a high quality, like let's say your parents were MIT professors and they raised you really well and read you all the good books and raised you with a nice high quality secular modern worldview, you're still going to max out your human potential at 3%. Whereas a Christian, they'll max it out at 0.5%, or a Muslim, 0.5%. All right. So don't go thinking that just because you were raised in a secular and you have a secular worldview that this now somehow means that you're maxing yourself out. No, you're not. So you see the problem here is that if you want to get significantly better results than the average, or what you've already been getting for most of your life, if you want something drastically better, you can see how it's not going to be enough just to rearrange the apps on your phone. That will get you some results, but it's not going to deeply, fundamentally change the way your phone operates. If you want to really change how your phone works, upgrade your operating system. Or if you really want to get fancy and you really want to do some cool stuff with your phone that is going to be blowing people's minds, because see, to blow people's minds, you just got to do something that their phone can't do. So how do you do that? Well, you got to root the phone, jailbreak the phone, and then you can do some really fancy stuff. I don't know if you've ever looked into jailbreaking phones. I've done it a few times on my older phones. And it's an interesting experience. It's very technical. It can come with a lot of risks and problems. You can spend hours and hours pouring through various kinds of technical documents and obscure esoterics, programmers speak in jargon to try to understand how to unlock your phone, jailbreak your phone, and then how to install new operating systems and change various kinds of settings that the manufacturer didn't want you to change. And that's really the heart of actualize.org. That's what makes it different than all the other common self-help teachings that you'll find out there, is that, yes, we talk about rearranging the software on your phone. Sometimes I give basic business advice, basic financial advice, basic career advice, basic love advice, sex advice, this sort of stuff. I give that advice sometimes, but really I only give you that advice to the extent that you need it in order to get more interested in actually working on the operating system. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to get down to the kernel level and start to tinker around there, because that's where the real change happens. That's how you become superhuman, is by tinkering around deep in there. And understand this, because we live in the dark ages, almost nobody in society, first of all, they don't even know this is possible. This is outside the realm of their possibility space. So even doctors and scientists and self-help gurus generally don't know that there's this possibility. That's one problem. The other problem, though, is that they will actively discourage you from even trying this. They will fearmonger about it. They will say it's impossible. They will say it's crazy. They will say it's a cult. They will say it's some new age stuff. They will say it's just wishful thinking. They will say it's just philosophy and theory. It's just ideas. After all, what can an idea really do to change your life? Don't underestimate the power of even a single idea to change your life. New ideas will change your life.